of this blast, or what fungus do in general with that energy. We're going to talk a little bit more about reproduction. And so for this, I'm going to have you do activity 48. Let's actually have you set up an entry for 48, and then we can take this in later. 48 is just called fungi reproduction. I'm just going to read that for you. It says, use the reading how fungi reproduce and the information from the fungi packets to answer the following question. So you've got the article on the back page. That way if we run out of time, you can still take this home and still get some ideas from them. And you can also use the packets that we used at the beginning of the unit to read a little bit more about the different ways that fungi reproduce. And then you'll be answering the following questions. So the first question here is just asking you to kind of summarize these main reproductive ways that fungi reproduce. Question 2, you can use the laptops that are at your station, or if you don't have one, you can grab some from the front here, to visit 2 websites to compare the difference between how yeast reproduce and how bacteria reproduce. I know a lot of you, when I was walking around, a lot of you were saying, oh, the yeast are just doing binary division, but they're actually doing something called budding. So I want you to kind of compare the differences between those two, because they are different from bacteria. And the rest of question 2 is asking you about yeast reproduction here. So you'll be looking at population, how fast the population of yeast grows. And this question here is going to ask you to revisit the homework question that you did last night. And then this question, which is the main question: why do fungi put out so much energy into reproduction?
What was the most
you can call those pretty much just like a reproductive cell. That grows into a new individual. And what's unique about a spore is that you take one of these little spores, it will grow into a new fungus. So a new individual. That will be exactly the same as a cell. So if you're looking at red mold even, you can see this one looks really good after a couple of weeks here.
Can I eat it?
Why is it that you don't see fungus growing right away on your bread? Yeah, Ari?
Because it takes time for the spores to be released and start growing.
Yeah, exactly. Jane, you want to ask that?
With bacteria, when we got the bacteria from different places around the pool, we didn't see that first when they're young, it grows, and it reproduced, and they come all over the world.
Yeah, you're right. So it's kind of the same way here too, where we've got maybe one or a couple of different spores that have fallen on the bread somehow through the wind, like Benny was saying. And then they continue to do these processes that we talked about, digestion and respiration. And then we're getting the release of spores, which will produce more of them. And so that's why it looks like it's growing. We've got a ton of them growing on there from the spores. There's also another way with something called hyphae. What did you find out about that? When I looked around, it looked like a lot of you had some good information on that. What did you find out about it on Crystal? What did you find out about hyphae?
They grow on fungi, but when they break off the fungus, they grow to form individuals.
Great, so it's kind of part of it breaks off, it'll grow into a new individual. Great. Is there anything else with hyphae that we can add? Look at this. Part of it breaks off, forms a new individual. What else can we do with hyphae? Anyone else find any more information about it? Deanna?
They also, they don't only do asexual reproduction.
They don't only do asexual, which is this part where they have almost an exact copy of themselves. What else do they do? Yeah.
Sexual reproduction.
Yeah, and how does that work?
Sexual reproduction, they break off and they meet together.
Right, so wherever they meet, that's where they would have. Right. So we've got asexual here, where we've got the exact copy, and we've got sexual.
Excuse me, what was the question?
So we've got two
What was the
different
question?
individuals, and where they meet, we'll have a new one. Bless you. And then we've got something called budding. Someone described that for us. Yeah, Jean.
It happens in yeast, and it's what happens when like a cell is growing off of like a parent cell,
Great.
and that's producing a new internal cell.
So, growing off of the parent cell. And how's that different from what bacteria do? Did anyone find that out? Yeah, yeah.
So if you're like bacteria cells, they kind of start growing inside and then separate, but the budding, they grow off of it.
Great, yeah. So when you were talking about what do yeast use that energy for, they do use it for growth as well too, as you can tell. That little cell that's breaking off of the parent cell needs to grow into an adult cell too. So we've got growth and we've got reproduction. So why do fungi use the energy towards reproduction? Why do they use most of that towards reproduction? Any ideas?
I'm asking.
Why don't you share your answer with the person next to you? I'm going to call in someone further. Go ahead and move on to this one. Why do fungi use so much energy towards reproducing? What did you come up with? I'm going to call on Lauren. What did you find?
I just said that they die quickly.
They die quickly. Yeah, that's a great answer. Maybe it's because they die quickly and they're trying to repopulate. Great. What are some other ideas you came up with? Yeah, Benny?
It's really important to keep like their kind alive,
Great. Why?
so like they don't die off.
Okay.
It's pretty much the instinct of every creature that's alive. They want to reproduce so that their species doesn't go extinct.
Okay. Well, if you talk about, let's say, an animal like a bird, how much energy do you think they put towards reproduction compared to a fungus? How much energy do they put towards reproduction? How are those two different?
Well, with a fungus, but they don't really have very sophisticated, well, they don't have brains, so they can't really move around collecting food, all the things that a bird does. So they just reproduce, that's all they can worry about. Plus it's pretty easy to kill off fungus, so you need to reproduce in case of that. And a bird can just fly around and fly out of harm's way.
Great. Yeah. So when I'm asking this question, I'm really asking kind of why is it that fungus don't have to put so much energy towards other things? Like if you think about us, we put a lot of energy towards doing a lot of things. What are some things that we put our energy towards? When you wake up and you eat breakfast, what are you using that energy for? What are some big things that energy feeds? Yeah.
Work.
For work, like? Can you describe it? Work? You mean like go to work?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Does anybody else want to add to that? Or elaborate on it more? Yeah, Dion?
Well, we do it for survival,
What?
like to survive through life.
Can you give me one thing that you need to do to survive?
We need to eat, we need to sleep, we need to breathe.
Okay. Any other things that we need to do? Everyone stand up real quick. Do a jumping jack. Thank you, Stacy. Does that help you think of any other ideas we might be putting the energy towards? Yeah, nice. Yeah, for movement. So if you comparing like fungus with other types of living things, you should know that there's a big difference between where that energy goes. We use a lot of it towards movement, find our food, etc., whereas fungus really are stuck in one place. That kind of goes back to that question, why don't fungi move?